Ronan, you know how last time we recorded an episode, me and Flora were like a bit sniffly? We're like, oh, we've just got some cold or something a bit run down.
Did it become full blown?
That was COVID, it turned out.
Oh no.
So
What a nightmare.
wouldn't have noticed, but one of my other mates who was with us when we went to London, had proper dry cough and all that kind of stuff. Those proper symptoms. So he tested and then was like, oh, you lot should test. And then about half of us ended up positive. But other than like listening back and being like, oh, I did sound a bit rough, I didn't really feel anything. So it just meant that I had a week of isolating, just being incredibly bored, working from home. But yeah, fun. How have you been, Alex?
Yeah, I've been good. I feel like it's nice to be on and not be just a filler. So
Yeah.
You
were always more than a filler to us, you know. You were a break. You were a bold new direction, you know.
Yeah,
you were the experiment, and it was a success. And then we took it from there.
Wait, was I the first guest?
You were the very first guest, yeah.
Oh my god, it's an honor.
I think nice. You were the first guest, and you were also very helpful in the fact that we did it quickly because I think like I was going away or something.
Yeah.
So we needed to just do like a little, not a throwaway episode, but like a little something to fill the schedule. Well, you weren't filler; you were just throwaway. You know, which one's worse? But we always wanted to bring you back on. So
well, that's, yeah,
and bring you back on with an actual like album recommendation. So, which is an exciting one. But yeah, what have you been up to since we last spoke online, I guess? not
God,
obviously I did see you like the other weekend.
I was gonna say, yeah, like since our last catch up.
And then the other weekend you were like, oh yeah, catch you on Monday, which was a lie because you've pushed us back a week. So
yeah, I don't think I'm entirely guilty for that. Ronan, was that not you as well?
Before you were on, I was fully taking responsibility for that one. Yeah, it's that worked out very well because I think I'd have been. I'm just not even sure I'd have made sense even if I'd have been able to make it on. To be honest, I felt so drained last week. So
yeah, one of them. No, it's as you say, Lou, it's better to delay and have a good time when we actually do it.
Yeah.
So. Good management call there. You've got the hallmarks of a good manager. Well done.
Yeah, I was thinking of saying that. Yeah.
Should I put that on my CV?
Yeah.
Try and
Alex
spin that.
said during a podcast, which only Ronan's mum and dad listen to, that I've got good manners.
Did either of you watch that? I put a video in the group chat. I don't think anyone watched it, as is per putting a video in the group chat. But it was just a guy like rinsing all the different London boroughs. And he was just like, oh, people who live in East London all have a podcast that no one cares about.
That is good.
I've actually not watched that yet, but I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah, me too. Hannah watched it. She reacted to it.
Yeah, I got the laugh react from Hannah, so I felt good about that.
I'll give it a watch.
I was like, if I only need one laugh react for it to be, as long as it doesn't get completely aired, then I'm happy.
Kind of validated, yeah.
Mm.
That's so funny you talking about that. My housemate got sent a video the other day. Do you know there's like a piece of music that always gets played with like the meme? Do you know like a drawing of a guy and he's often crying, but it's not the frog, it's like the person, and there's lots of variations of that person.
Or like Wojak or something.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah. So there's also always a track played alongside that, like a sad kind of song. You got to send this video, and it was just like the life tale of a certain type of man, and it was like go to Bristol, Manchester, Leeds University, and move to like South London, and then it showed like pictures of Peckham, and then it was like then move to East London, and then it showed like bits of East London, then it was like wears an Arsenal retro football shirt, reads like the Athletic magazine, watches Richard Curtis documentaries, like it literally like, every single photo there was like trips to Margate. Like I felt quite out of the loop, but apparently in lockdown, if you lived in London, people was like, let's go to Margate, which is like this like, place where everyone moved out of London to Margate. Margate, which is this like seaside town, because they couldn't afford to live there, but it's like really cool and hippie and stuff. So people go to Margate now.
Hannah and I went to Margate recently. Just to add to the stereotype. Yeah, actually, like it was nice, but I don't know whether it's actually all that. I feel like Londoners are just so deprived of like anywhere that's not a huge city that, that they leap on anything like that. It's
anything that's remotely like rural.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like I also grew up by Morecambe, so I feel like it was kind of just like Morecambe, but with a few more like shops that should be in Hackney there. But otherwise it was pretty much like, yeah, and I feel like I've had plenty of that growing up. So
Did you say it was a seaside town, or did I imagine that?
It is.
yeah.
It is, okay, yeah. So,
Yes, it is
but
nice
it's
to get
not
to
quite
see
as
as well.
run down as a northern seaside town, then, I imagine.
You walk a few streets back and it's still pretty run down.
Yeah, okay, so there's nowhere that's safe.
It's got a few streets that seem to have become very nicely gentrified, and then it just becomes.
Did you get fish and chips while you were there?
We actually didn't. Nah.
Okay, good, because I genuinely, I have quite limited experience of this, and this might be quite a controversial take, but I don't think there's any good fish and chips in the south of England. I don't think they know how to do them properly.
Interesting.
That's a bold take. Not gonna
Prove
lie,
me wrong.
I did. I did think at first, like, and I guess it makes sense, but at first I was like, it took me a while to notice, but I realised there aren't that many fish and chip shops in London. But then I had a second revelation when I realised actually there are more than I thought. So that it was,
Yeah, but you can't count ones that do like more than one thing. You can't count a fish and chip shop that is also a Chinese or also does.
No. There's actually a fair few like actual
the fish and chip shop has to be like a pure fish and chip. Right? Okay. Next time in London, can we get fish and chips? And
apparently as well, like it is like, so obviously it's British, but apparently it's like. I can't remember who told me this now, so this could be complete bollocks, but it's like actually like Jewish origins. Like I always assumed, therefore, like maybe sort of East End kind of like, so maybe it comes from London originally. But let me see if I can find some actual history rather than just
that would be cool if that was true. Tell you what, you should come and get pie and mash. That's like
pie and mash.
There's like eel as well. They're like the staple East London Cockney dishes.
Okay.
Pie, mash, and eel.
Alex, next time I come and visit you, let's go get pie, mash, and eel.
Yeah, there's like there's a shop in Hoxton. There's a little documentary about it on YouTube. It's like 10 minutes long. It's like the oldest pie shop in East London. And,
have you actually been?
I've not been to, but I have got pie and mash. But I'll tell you where I got it in a sec. But this shop has a little documentary about it, and the guy was like, "We've been doing that. I'm not even going to try and do an East London accent. But he's like, we've been cooking the same thing for 40 years, just pie and mash. We recently added a vegetarian option, but none of those kind of people come in here, so we always have to cook it from scratch when they do." It's like a proper geezer, like East London pie shop. But I had it out in Essex because so many like Cockneys moved out there. I had it in, where did I go to? Clacton. You have it in like an university centre there. And so I was doing cover out there, and next to the centre, they were like, "There's not many places for you to go and eat, but we've got a pie shop, a KFC." And I was like, "Right, well, I'm going to try the pie."
Got to get an authentic pie.
Authentic.
I need to get in on this. I mean, like, I feel like pies aren't something I have enough of, given that they're just like a core British food, aren't they? Really, like, I should show a bit more national pride.
You are limited a bit more as a vegetarian, though.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, like what is a good vegetarian? Like what, cheese and onion pie?
I don't know. There's some banging like proper like, you know, pies made for the tofu eating generation.
Like an onion pie. Oh, tofu pie.
There's like I'm using tofu eating more as like a generic, as in wokarati kind of vibes, rather than necessarily tofu pies. I'm trying to like I've had like a sweet potato and goat's cheese pasty, which was incredible.
That's a pasty though. That's not a pie.
Well, what's the difference between a pasty
on a technicality?
and a pie?
Oh, that's gonna get.
Oh,
scrap this type of podcast. Let's debate what constitutes a pie. What is the Buena Vista Social Club? Don't care about that foreign mumbo jumbo. I'm talking about British pies.
Yeah, we're going to rebrand the podcast with a British flag just plastered across the record. It's
record
or
can just
maybe an England
fly.
flag actually. Yeah.
Double down.
Before we move on from, the fish and chips topic, which we have really laboured here, but I'll just quickly, I've found, so I've gone on the Wikipedia page. Apparently, it was introduced to the UK by Sephardic Jews,
Okay.
and
Wow.
the earliest known shops are in London, but also in Lancashire. So I'm going to
Okay,
claim
That is
that.
interesting.
That is really good.
Yeah.
That is really interesting. Right. Well, now we just need to find the oldest fish and chip shop in England and get a chippy from it.
Mhm.
That needs to be. Can that be like more of something else entirely on the road?
It's going to be a tricky one because
The non-music edition.
it is apparently unclear which is the first one. I mean, I wonder if it's a bit like
we can make great strides in the research.
Yeah, we are historians.
that,
Well,
you
two
know?
of us are
yeah, two historians. Get you on it.
Yeah, two historians and a philosopher.
ponder
Like
on it,
who
Rosie.
better?
Yeah,
position?
yeah. I'll just have a think.
What are the
How do you
philosophical
define a
implications of the first fish and chip shop? Yeah.
to explore the ontology of what it is that really constitutes fish and chips?
I want to be like the Melvin Bragg of it and just be like, just focus, Ronan.
Cut to the chase.
Cut to the chase. What does the evidence tell us? Any dates? What was I up to, Louis? Shall I dial back to that? Or have we out,
Oh,
have we
yeah,
out
you
done
can
the
if you want
conversation,
to.
Ronan?
Really derailed that.
It's all right. It's all right. I mean, since I've last been living in London for 7 months now, which has been, can't believe it's been 7 months to be honest. Yeah, kind of flown by.
Yeah, that has flown by. Yeah.
But yeah, it's been really good. And then I had a month away where I went to Mexico, Belize, and Guatemala, and that has informed my album choice for today.
I was wondering if that was the case. Was that because you bumped into somebody there who recommended this, or was it playing, or like what? I mean, that's jumping into the album discussion straight away. But like, I am just really curious what made where this pick came from.
Well, so it was like towards the end of my trip, I was in a place called El Paredon, which is like a surfing town on the Pacific coast of Guatemala, and it was like the last 4 days, and I just wanted to like sit at a beach and just relax, having moved around quite a lot over a month. I was like sitting in a hammock, just like having a beer, reading a book, and like these like people like sat down around me, and I'd met one of the girls before in Antigua in the previous place. So I was talking to her, and then she was with some friends that she'd made. And then they one of them got out a guitar, and I was like, "Oh God's sake, here we go!" Like, there's nothing worse when somebody gets out a guitar. But he started like strumming away, and they were all just like singing this song, and I was like, "This is like actually beautiful." Like the sun was setting, I was like sitting in a hammock with a beer, and they were just singing this like beautiful like Latin song, and I thought, "This is class. This is really really nice." I've got to ask them what it is, so I asked them about the tune. And it was the first song on this album, Chan Chan.
No way.
Yeah. And
That's a cracking introduction.
Then I was like, is it by Buena Vista Social Club? And they were like, yeah. Have you never heard of them? And I was like, no. And then since then I've been trying to tell everyone about it, but everybody has already heard about them before me. So, so I was the one out of the loop. But it was great. It was really really good. It was just really lovely. And then they like sang some of the other ones on the album as well. And then obviously I just went down like quite a strong Wikipedia hole trying to work out like who this group were.
Having now heard like the actual song itself, was it a good cover, or were you like, oh, actually the cover didn't, the cover on the beach didn't do any justice?
Well, I think it's probably like one of the livelier songs on the album, and this was like an acoustic version with like some like soft spoken of Latin America. Well, they weren't even. Were they like? Yeah, they were Latin America. Some of them were like from like Argentina and then and like Europe as well. But like lots of like Romance languages. Basically, none of them were English, and that's a really important distinction to make.
What do you mean English is the language of love? We have Shakespeare.
Yeah, of course. Sorry.
Language of pies.
Yeah, the language of pies and fish and chips.
That's amazing that they all knew the song though, because like I'd heard of Buena Vista Social Club and like I think listened to a little bit of them, but I don't think I'd have ever been able to sing a song until now, having like listened to the album properly a few times. You know what I mean? So it's interesting that it clearly had that, it was that loved and familiar to them all.
You know, it made #1 in Germany
Really?
when it.
Wow.
Yeah, I was reading that on the Wikipedia. It only made number 80 in the UK,
Well,
which is probably
that's what's
why
going on, right?
it
Because
passed under our
one of the
radar.
guys singing it was like his parents were Colombian, but he'd grown up in Germany, and one of them was like she was Moroccan, but she lived in France, and then it was like 2 Argentinians, and so it was like I don't know. I just felt like everyone knew about it, and it was funny. I worked with a French lad, and I walked into the office and was like, Thomas, I got to tell you about this album. Buena Vista Social Club, and he was like, yeah, what, have you never heard of it?
Yeah,
like,
the most famous Cuban.
But obviously, you've gone away to Latin America and come back with like chatting about that, like, thinking you're special. Like, come on.
I really discovered myself and music out there, you know.
I've heard of a country called Cuba. Like,
So with your visit, was it kind of like a pre-planned A to B to C? Like, were you always going to do those countries in that order, or was it a little bit more free-form, or was it like part of a? Were you like on like a tour holiday or something, or was it individual traveling? You just happened to bump into. You said you already met this girl, one of the groups. So were you on a similar kind of tour kind of thing, or was it just happenstance that you ended up in the same place? Like, what kind of holiday was it?
It was very much like a backpacking holiday. I hadn't booked anything other than my flight, so like I landed in Cancun. Obviously, I flew to Cancun as well because it was so cheap. I booked it all quite last minute. And my original plan was just to fly to Nicaragua and then just spend 4 weeks in Nicaragua. But I flew to Cancun because it was so much cheap, and I was like, well, I'll work my way down. The Cancun is like you're on a flight with loads of like. Just like people going on their holidays to Cancun. You're like, I'm going to go to Mexico. And they're like, yeah, I'm off to Cancun to have some beer. And but then, and then I like landed in Cancun. I didn't even have my first night booked. But it was such a like well-travelled backpacking route that it wasn't like it just... Yeah. It was sort of the first place I was going to go to. And I just messaged my housemates because they'd all done it before, like the exact same route. And well, not the exact same route, but I'd been in the region. They gave me a suggestion, and then every hostel I went to, people were like, oh, you should go here, you should go here, and it just sort of fell into place so that I just ended up following this route, which is it's not the most relaxing way to travel. Like, it is quite stressful at times, but it did make it feel like a bit of an adventure.
Is that as in because you want to get to every place that you hear about? Like
yeah, you know what I'm like. Yeah, like I get a very strong sense of like, oh my god, like, have I missed something here? Have I missed?
Yeah. I'm in the wrong place.
I've wasted a night going to this place. But then the opposite happens as well. Is that like because you like I've got to see loads of things, you get this sort of like rushing sensation where like you don't just relax or. And when I was by myself as well, and obviously I met lots of people along the way who I'd like travel with for a couple of days. I travelled with the same group of people for over a week at one stage. So you're never alone. You just replay the same chat quite a lot when you meet people. Like, oh, where are you from? How long are you travelling for? Where have you been? Like, it's the point where you just feel like asking them something completely random. Like, I don't know.
Did at any point you feel like lying as well? Like, oh, where you're from? And just give a complete why you're traveling. I'm fleeing my wife.
I could have done a bit. I feel like I always used to apologise. People would be like, oh, where are you from? I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm English. And then I'd be like, oh, how long are you travelling for? You'd be like, oh, only a month, you know, because people are on these like 8-month trips when you're there like, summer hollybobs, mate. And
were most people of a similar age?
I would have said, like, I think it felt very much like 25, so like 25 was like the average sort of. Yeah, if you're going to calculate the average of all the people I met, I reckon 25 would be it. So it was really like so easy to like make friends, and like it was just a really, really good experience doing it that way.
I like that kind of temporary friend thing where you're like friends for a week and then
and it is quite intense.
Most people you'll never see it again.
Like, it is intense because when you meet people in the UK, like you don't then proceed to spend an entire like 48 hours with them at a minimum. It really is like quite an intense experience, and that like gives a slight illusion that like you're really, really close, I guess, but you don't really know these people. I don't know that like, and I think it helps that like most people when you're traveling, like, I've got a very similar mindset to you, like very open-minded, want to do things.
For the most part, everyone's really chill, like open to new experiences.
I don't think I met anyone along the way that I was like, God, I really don't like you.
Ticket. Yeah.
Maybe one.
There's certain ones
There was
where
one
like
person.
you
There was one person.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say there's always it's always the one that you end up talking to a bit too long, and then they say something, and you're like, oh no.
I bumped into this guy like several times along, because that's the thing, because everyone, it's like a very similar route that everyone does. So you're either going one way on the route or the other. Like, so like once you meet one group of people, then you'll just like bump into them along the way, which is really nice because you get this sort of like continuity. But if you don't like someone and they keep cropping up, it is a bit like, oh, for fuck's sake.
No escape.
But yeah, it's great. I got to test like my national stereotyping a little bit, which isn't going to go down well on a podcast. I shouldn't really do this.
No. I'm down for it, because I was about to say some national stereotype. Like, I was about to say a national stereotype. Well, I was going to ask whether the guy you didn't like was Australian.
Oh no, I like Australian. He was I don't know what I want to say. He was Canadian. He wasn't even that bad. He was just really brash, like really brash.
Really? You see that's how I'd imagine Australians. This just goes to show.
That's quite an Australian trait. Yeah.
Stereotypes don't tell you anything.
No.
There we go. That's our lesson for the podcast. Now,
as I now stereotype heavily a certain nationality. Right, Germans.
Yes.
Are really, really lovely. But I developed this theory in New Zealand with Angus that like they really, really like bread. Like really like bread. And I asked a lot of Germans what they missed the most about Germany, and I have a 100% record of them all saying, I miss the bread. And do you know what? I started the holiday off being like, oh God, so boring. Imagine just like missing bread. But I've just concluded that actually the bread must be really good. Like, I have been to Germany and I have had... Have you been? I've not been to Germany. I have been to Germany, but not recently enough to have tried loads of bread.
I've not been, but now I really, really want to go. Just for the bread alone.
So this food-based spin-off that we're gonna do, where we do the oldest fish and chips, we're also gonna do a trip to Germany and try
that should be classic,
bread. But then to complete it, we'll have to go to New Zealand again and Australia and try their bread and be like, definitely shit.
Their bread was crap though. New Zealand bread was.
It is crap.
Yeah.
It's like American bread. Quite crap. Like, it's quite sugary, isn't it?
It's just like really artificial and processed, isn't it? Like it's just like heavily processed food. So, and that was like the bread in Latin America as well. I mean,
I've not been. We're already in the German mindset.
Oh God, I've not been to a lot of Latin America. Guatemala and Mexico was not impressed with the bread.
What was the cuisine like generally? Like, what kind of stuff were you eating?
I'm talking tacos. No, it was I mean in Mexico it was like fajitas, tacos, enchiladas, quesadillas, just like that classic sort of food really. And then like my favourite thing would be just getting tacos like just from street vendors.
Yeah.
They used to bang. But then you just get like just like refried beans and like nachos, and it was really good. It was really, really good food. I tried to.
I imagine it was like this level above like anything that you'd get from like a Mexican restaurant.
I don't know though. That's the thing. The
really?
thing is like
that's interesting.
I'm going to sound like such a snob. When you live in London, no, but like, there is like a slight element of like you can't beat like these big international cities for variation. Like I like tacos.
Yeah, the food has come to you.
I really like tacos, but tacos every day, like. That's a bit much after a while.
I do hate to say it, but I sort of agree with you on that. I'm pretty sure I remember saying like after coming back from we're offending everybody here, but after coming back from Italy, like
it's good. We'll get engagement, Ronan, and we'll get comments, and that'll boost us in the algorithm. It's all good.
Yeah. Okay, let's welcome the controversy. But like in Italy, when I went to Italy in the summer with Hannah's family, look, I mean. The pizza's good. But,
yeah.
Like,
yeah.
A lot of the best chefs end up in London.
Yeah, they do. They really do. I actually had this conversation with
go on, sorry.
No, just that like also I was talking about, do you know Stanley Tucci? I'm butchering his surname.
Yeah.
Somebody tell me if it's wrong. Anyway, the bowl guy.
No idea.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Tucci?
Yeah.
So he has he's got a TV series called Searching for Italy, or like Finding Italy or something like that. And
yeah.
he does 3
good.
episodes. The third one is in London, and he's just like going around London, like eating amazing Italian food, like trying to explain why.
He's like, I found
like-
it. This is where
He's like
Italy
trying to
is.
explain why so many Italians have moved over to London and started doing Italian food. And like, anyway, that would just reinforce your point. In fact, there was a restaurant we should try called I think it's called Mamma Mia's or something like that, and basically they ship over Italian mums. And then they just from different regions of Italy, and they just cook regional dishes, these Italian mums.
Amazing.
And then they like shout, and like there's lots of drama in the kitchens as they're cooking and stuff like that. And then they give you like cooked food from mums from Italy.
Delicious, authentic.
How much choice do the Italian mums get in this? Because the way you described it,
They just get packaged
yeah,
up.
I think I made it sound like more of a slave operation than it is. It definitely isn't a slave Italian women.
just walking down the street, thrown in a bag, like you come with us.
Kidnapped by the mafia. It's not like that at all.
Really?
I want to dial back from some horrendous national stereotyping.
We're just throwing everything in. Yeah,
it's really not good.
They start driving really erratically.
Oh my god! Yeah, we should really get away from this conversation. But
it was all the talk of pies.
Yes, the main point you're making is that London is the best place in the world for everything. That's what you're getting at. This is where we're angling, right?
It just I have had insane Mexican food in London, like really good Mexican food, and maybe not the best mojito I've ever had, but close to it in London.
It's up there.
The best mojito I've ever had was in Bristol. No, I'm joking. But that was from, and this can dial us quite nicely back to the album. So you're welcome, guys. But there's a little Cuban shop,
thank you for governing this.
Little Cuban restaurant in Bristol, and they do takeaway mojitos, and they're like £8. But honestly, unbelievable. Best mojito I've ever had, consistently unbelievable. And I think that's the thing about cocktails, especially mojitos. So like, they're not very consistent. Like you can get a mojito from somewhere and it'll be awful, but this place does consistently the best mojito you're ever going to get. So I'm going to leave that with you all, everyone. That's what you should be doing.
And is it called the Buena Vista Social Club?
Do you know what? By coincidence, it should be.
But you know what is called the Buena Vista
The
Social
album we're supposed to be discussing.
This album, and also the group, and also one of the songs.
More of something else entirely.
God, yeah, they really loved that name, didn't they?
Well, it turns out that the song didn't come first. Obviously, the Social Club itself came first. But then the song Buena Vista Social Club on the album is like the anthem. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but like the mascot tune almost of the Social Club. And then they were like, when they were trying to think of a name for the group, they were like, yeah, why not? That one seems really,
is that how it was? So, I thought it was like named after the location.
So like named after. I guess it's a combination of like named after the location, through the fact that when they were looking through the list of the songs they'd brought together, they were like, oh, that's a good, nice, because they were like, oh, we feel like we're a club now. We've been hanging out together for like a week. Cool. Because it did only take 6 days to record this album, apparently, which is proper impressive. But yeah, enough fun little facts about the album. Obviously, we know why you picked it, because you got serenaded by a guitar strummer on the beach. But yeah, like when you like found it and went away and had a listen, was it that first track, Chan Chan, where you were just like, yeah, from the get go, you're like, oh, I'm in, or was it like when you came away with the whole experience?
You know, I think it was the first track, which is going to make me sound a little bit. I mean, of course, I've listened to the whole album as well. But if you were going to ask me my favourite, it would just be Chan Chan straight off the bat.
I think Chan Chan's my
favourite. It is really
as
good.
well.
Candella's really good though as well.
Candela is
wow, yeah, that is also in my top 3. That's God.
Yeah, I like
as was also, and the other one was Buena Vista Social Club. So we've now just covered my top 3. We could...
Is that part of the questioning at some point? We'll come back to some of
Yeah,
those.
yeah.
We usually do our favorite songs at the end,
Oh,
but
okay.
like it's freeform, baby. We can throw in that
Nice. Well,
wherever.
we can do it rapid
But I
fire
do
at the
feel
end.
like with Chan Chan, I feel like you almost would. This might sound a bit ridiculous, but like I think you almost know from the first like 4 chords of Chan Chan if this album's for you.
Yeah.
Like if you heard those
Mm.
first few chords and you go, ooh,
Yeah.
you're in for the whole experience. Whereas if you listen to it and you're like, meh, then don't bother,
Yeah.
put it away. But for me, when you recommended this album, I didn't know it. Again, showing my musical ignorance as well. But like we said, it only got to number 80 in the UK, so you can't blame us. But as soon as I heard Chan Chan, I was in. Especially because like recently I've been getting kind of a bit more into Latin American music, like a bit of like Colombian stuff. Obviously, Cuban stuff is a little bit different, but just that kind of Latin, like Spanish music inspiration. It's just good. It's just like it's a little bit vibey, a little bit sexy, a little bit like it just puts you in a good mood listening to it, and it's very atmospheric. I think the fact that you first heard it kind of on the beach with like the sun setting and hanging out with like some chill people, that is like such a vibe, and that's something that I could totally like picture being the perfect way to kind of experience this album. But like equally it works as like a car album, just driving in the sun. I think you want it in the sun for the most part.
I would say that's so true. Like, it's like the obviously setting and where you listen to something affects your perception of that music and so on. But like, it's so cold at the moment. Like I've been trying to listen to it more just ahead of this, and I've just been a little bit less able to like really appreciate it because my association with it. I listened to this acoustic version on the beach and was like, wow, that's a really beautiful song. And then I went back to the hostel, got my headphones, and listened to the album. Great, but like I listened to Chan Chan and then some of the other ones, and I was like, this is like incredible, like so exciting, such a cool vibe. Like I guess I'd like had such a great experience, and I was listening to it at the end. It almost felt like this sort of like amazing album that I could associate with this great patch of traveling that I'd done. I hadn't even gone to Cuba. Like I feel like I need to say that. Like, I didn't go anywhere near Cuba. I went to Mexico and Guatemala, but like there was obviously a lot of cultural similarities, but it just felt like very much like in that sort of vein. And I'd done a lot of salsa as well, not a lot, but I'd done salsa more than once, twice.
You did salsa. How did that go? It was as a quick aside.
It's actually the best. It was so much fun. It's so much fun. And like, it's really, really good. And I did it I probably did it classic English style. Like I had a couple too many drinks and then just got a bit overconfident and was like wandering about, like asking people to dance for me. But the first time I did it with like this like big salsa class, and there was like a lot of Brits. Well, there wasn't loads of Brits. There were some Brits, but other Europeans and some Americans. There's one American girl, and basically you partner with someone, and then you form like a big circle with your partner, and then you do a little bit of a track, and then your partner moves around, so you dance with everyone there. So there might be like 60 of you, and you go through 30 partners. Obviously, it's such an international crowd. I'm just saying about this American girl, because she was just like, you look, the moment she was standing in front of me, she was like, you look so European. You are so European. I was very like, I know. She was like, I was wearing like, what Americans are like? They're just European is this massive group. Again, that's a massive stereotype of Americans. So not everyone does that. But I was just like in like short, like relatively short shorts, and like had like a pouch on, and it's like, that makes you European. Yeah. But anyway,
to be fair, there's probably a lot of things that haven't crossed over there. Like I bet the mullet and mustache look is still quite a European thing. Do you reckon? I can't imagine it being an American thing.
But short shorts is one I always remember from working on summer camps in America as well. The Australians, Kiwis, Brits, we all used to wear like shorts, like properly shorts, like what like rugby boys are like. They were some really short as well, and there was some of that about as well. And then I didn't really notice it until like, at the end of the camp, like one of the camp counselors was like, in America, if you wear short shorts, like that usually means you're gay. or like that's
Yeah,
what
yeah,
that's what the gay community in the United States do.
The
Yeah,
association
and
with
then
it
I
is-
just suddenly looked
yeah.
around and noticed that, like, all the boys, they just would wear like these like below knee shorts, the basketball shorts.
yeah.
that you
The
see.
unnecessarily long shorts.
Yeah, and that was like a really weird sort of like distinction. But I maintain that being like fairly true. But yeah, anyway, so going back to the salsa, like it was a lot of fun. You would just dance with loads of people, and so like having never done it before, I'd suddenly find myself in front of like a 80-year-old Mexican woman who doesn't speak a word of English, and I'm just going like,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Lo siento, lo siento. And then as I butcher this like very basic salsa move, but it was just really, really good fun, and like there wasn't really any pressure to like be good at it. So I really enjoyed that.
I think salsa is something I'd quite like to learn, but there's the only options for like salsa classes up in York. I'm pretty sure is just like full of 40, 50-year-old
Yeah, I think there are
couples. Like not really the
some. Yeah, no,
vibe
that's very fair.
to
I
learn.
mean, in London, it's very, very vibey. I think like, there are lots of. I've looked at some salsa classes, and I know a couple of people who, well, I know a person who does it, and she says it's great. So I do want to do it, but like I just got to. It's one of those ones you've just got to go and do it. And
Yeah, yeah. So it's easy to kind of like be like, oh yeah, when I get around to it.
But
okay, oh yeah, I want to do it. I want to try it. It's like saying you want to learn Spanish. Like, I want to learn Spanish, but you got to crack on,
Yeah. I think, I wrote myself a reminder on my phone. It was like for the first weekend when I was back. It was just like, sign up for salsa classes, you mug.
Yeah.
If you can do it,
Yeah.
like, no, so I'm a mug. But yeah.
I'll consider this
I know,
a reminder.
next time I'm on, if you'll have me back, then maybe I'll be able to say, I did salsa, guys.
Report back.
You can hold me accountable.
Yeah, it does seem like something that like people get incredibly obsessive over. Because like when in my masters, and I can't even remember exactly the context, but we read, it was in an aesthetics course, and we read a whole like academic article with this person just talking about tango and like the whole subculture around tango. I think it was around like, can you be feminist and into the tango? Because tango was like very traditional gender dynamics. But like, I just found it fascinating that somebody had taken the time to invest this. It was a high quality like academic article, and that we were then studying, but just because they were clearly very, very into tango, like, and it came through, and like they talk about all these other people that they met for like the research, who were also into tango, and it's like a cult almost. But I can imagine it's the same with like salsa maybe, or I don't know, like there must just be something that happens when it clicks, like something in the brain or in the heart.
I can fully see that. And you watch people who are good at salsa as well, and it is just phenomenal. Like it's so addictive just to watch people who are good at it. And I didn't even realize there are different types. There's like Cuban salsa and Puerto Rican salsa, and like you're learning a similar dance, but there's actually different styles for it, and obviously it does have that like gender dynamic to it as well. As a man, you have to lead it, which I think at the beginning, I was having this conversation with someone the other day. Like at the beginning, that adds like a lot of pressure to the man, because it's you have to know it well enough to be able to lead someone around.
Yeah.
But then I think maybe as you develop further, like I think that there's maybe more pressure on. I'm not really sure. I mean, yeah, like if you can signal it well and you can lead it, then you can make the dance really, really good. I'm not sure.
When we were in Bulgaria skiing, we were on like a night out, like a bit of après ski, and one of my friends started salsaing with like, I want to say like a ski guru. That's not the right thing, but like someone who's like leading the group activities or whatever that we'd seen at the start of the week and not interacted with at all. But they were salsaing together, and he kept getting really annoyed because she was leading the whole time. My friend just refused to not lead. She's like, I can lead I can lead the salsa. Why does it have to be the man? Like,
Good on her,
she's just taking control. And I respect it. Does it have to be?
No,
I don't know what the history to it.
I think that's like the traditional way of doing it. But do you know what, Louis? All I want to do is be led. I don't want to be told. I don't want to have that power.
My friend has since like tried to teach me a little bit, and I'm like so happy for her to lead because I don't know what I'm doing.
I just want to be spun around. Just want to be spun around and swept off my feet.
I mean, it is the fun part. Let's be real. That is the most thrilling part of the dance. Presumably, is spinning around. Is there a bit of jumping involved as well? Like all of that stuff.
Salsa.
Yeah,
I guess.
don't
I mean,
know.
you do get to spin as a guy. Like you like initiate moves, and if they know the move, then they'll spin you when they should. And like you definitely do get to do some fun stuff as a guy. Like a lot of fun.
Oh,
stuff.
that's all right then.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's okay.
You just have to be good at it. Whereas, like you can watch like some people just be. I mean, obviously, it's not just a simple case of you stand there and get led. You need to have a bit of rhythm and stuff like that. But like, it did always look like the girls. I mean, maybe they just were much better dancers than us, which is very plausible. But they did just seem to like automatically be much better standard.
Much more elegant and graceful than lanky English boys.
Yeah, just trying to two-step. A lot of times it's been like, all I know how to do is two-step. I'm so sorry.
Did you ever feel inspired to salsa while listening to Buena Vista? Were there any songs that were kind of bringing out your moves again? Were you like, ooh, yeah?
I think some of the slower ones are more salsable. I mean, it's not salsa music.
No.
But as I said, I mean that's why I've like painted this. It's quite a broad brush I'm painting sort of Latin music in general with at the moment. But I don't know. It just felt like it really sort of picked up on like lots of music that I'd been listening to, and obviously like actually what you end up hearing the most when you're in Latin America is like reggaeton.
Yeah.
But you can still feel like the sort of traditional Latin American music sort of in that as well. Like so.
There's a lineage
it just
there,
felt like a nice
I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think what's wonderful about Buena Vista is that it is kind of a compilation of like a showcase of Cuban music, because there's a couple of originals on it, but a lot of them are songs that have been like part of the Cuban zeitgeist for a very, very long time. So they kind of make up the makeup of kind of older. Obviously, Cuba has a lot of different kind of musical goings on and a lot more modern stuff. But like, I think this album kind of showcases a lot of kind of classical Cuban music from a certain period, and kind of brings it all together with this like medley of really quite talented people who just clearly have just a love for music, and they're all just expressing themselves together. But I think it's lovely that like it was this opportunity to kind of showcase this music, because apparently I was reading that like it wasn't particularly like well received locally because it wasn't doing anything spectacular locally. It was just like, oh yeah, it's just some local musicians remaking these songs that we all know and love. That's nice. But like obviously globally it was like this phenomenon, but because it was almost this kind of presentation to the rest of the world, like, yeah, this is what's been going on in Cuba. And I think because of like them being some like absolute classics, it is this kind of sense that it is this core Latin American vibe that like you can pick up on. So even though you weren't in Cuba, there's enough kind of like cultural similarities, mostly the stuff that gets drawn from the Spanish side of things, I think, because obviously this album's kind of a mix between stuff that originates from like Spanish elements, and then it's kind of a mixture with that and like a lot of African origin kind of stuff.
That's probably to varying degrees the same phenomenon across across South America and Central America, isn't it? And that's actually one of the things I kind of, not that I'm actually not sure I've got anything insightful to say on it, but I just think it's amazing when you can hear in music that kind of combination of cultures and when it marries just so well.
Shared DNA that then is combined with something new and creates something like really special.
I think Buena Vista Social Club, the original recording when they were getting these people together, was supposed to include musicians from West Africa.
Yeah.
Really?
Did you watch because I don't know if you watched the documentary, Ronan, but they talk about.
I only got halfway through. That was going to be my confession.
Did you see the lorries that pulled carriages that were basically the buses? That's really stuck with me.
That was really cool.
I found that it was just like full on, like it was nothing like core to the documentary or anything. This is just a tangent. It's just like passing shots of like regular Cuba and like public transport, but instead of buses, it looked like they just had like semis pulling trailers that were like hollowed out and made into like a bus, and they were like painted like bright pink and stuff like that. That was
So cool.
iconic.
The thing that's just talking of the general like Cuban things that had an impact. All the people smoking cigars just looked cool as fuck.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you got a lot of that in the documentary, didn't you? Some like old woman just like smoking.
Yeah.
That was in those iconic shots. Yeah.
That kind of made me want to take up cigar smoking, but it was short lived. But for a moment there, I was like, it does look cool.
Just kind of going back to that, like musical styles and the influence on Cuban music. It's interesting that you talked about like that African influence on it, because I think some of the, like if you look at the genres involved in the Buena Vista Social Club album, like if you look at where like for example like Son Cubano, like that has call and response in it as like a musical genre, and call and response in the same way that like sea shanties was influenced by it, like comes from West Africa, because the Islamic call to prayer is like considered one of the origins of it, and that obviously made its way.
I never realized there was that sort of Islamic link. So that means that like it's something that we associate with kind of like West African music, I guess, but actually it's kind of going right over to kind of the Middle East as its proper origins, is it?
Yeah, and I think also there was like a local like style of singing that is imparted onto the call and response as well. But yeah, it has that sort of like mixed origin itself, like all things. Like all these cultural things come from other cultures, and there are these blends together. But it was really, really interesting having that.
I think it goes to show like when people talk about like is there ever going to be a point where we like run out of new music or whatever? And it's like what will always happen is what always has happened, is that you have these varying sounds and rhythms and musical ideas and identities from all these various cultures, and then as time goes on, they all end up getting a little bit mixed together and taking things from each other and evolving and adapting. And I think that like the fact that something like Son Cubano, is that how you say it, Alex? I don't know.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I probably butchered it myself.
Can come into existence kind of goes to show that like there's plenty more places for music to evolve into, because all it takes is like a little bit of a melding of cultural ideas, and you get something unique, which takes some like beautiful things from both origins and kind of combines them into something cool.
I think quite classically as well, often it comes from the fringes of like society, or like or groups that like you maybe don't have. Well, they always talk about like, for example, punk in Britain being something that blew up from a group of people that were quite impoverished in the UK, and you could say that about so many different types of music, like hip hop as well. These are undervalued groups, and these like sort of subcultures and cultures often therefore produce the most impressive music and things like that, and then it merges into the mainstream, and then the next thing comes along, the next wave of like marginalized groups producing things and stuff like that. So anyway, that is obviously a massive broad strokes of the paint, but I think we've cracked music there, ain't we?
Well, like I think all of this stuff's quite interesting in contrast as well too, like because I was thinking a little bit about this before coming on. It's like interesting in contrast to the standard narrative, the standard kind of like, I guess it's probably got its roots in like Western classical music, but it's quite common still in popular culture, where it's like big advancements are made by one or two geniuses, like it's some genius sitting there, often a man, like often a white man, so sitting there and kind of like it comes up with this great way to innovate, whereas actually it's almost always more of like a kind of cultural sweep, and as you say, often like a countercultural sweep,
and like groups of people merging ideas and just naturally kind of things naturally evolving out of communities rather than individuals, I think, is like the reality of the situation.
100%.
And that's probably in part explains why the album wasn't that popular in Cuba. I mean, you've already sort of explained it, Louis, but like that it wasn't. We're not looking at like, although these musicians are very talented, we're not looking at the people who produced the songs or created it themselves.
Yeah,
It's people who can just replicate it really well. And so for all these people who've heard it lots before, it's not that special, but for everyone else, it feels this sort of like lost art almost. I think you get a real feeling of that like lost art kind of when you watch the documentary, because the people in it are just so old. It just feels like
that surprised me, actually.
It's like we've captured it before they die. Yeah. There's a bit in it where the pianist says he hadn't played for 10 years before because he had arthritis.
And he had arthritis, and his piano was infested with like termites or something. So he was as removed from piano playing as it's probably possible to get. And he still came back and tracked out some of the most beautiful piano playing.
It's hard to even comprehend that, isn't it?
Does anybody have like a particular sound in the album that they really enjoyed? I think I didn't really pick up on this until I watched the documentary, and each of the individual musicians had like a little bit of a section.
The spotlight, I really like the way it was set up.
Yeah.
I've got one sound on Chan Chan, the whoop whoop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you watch that bit in the documentary?
No, I don't think so. Because
that whoop whoop
I really missed out.
One of the percussion guys. He has like, I think it's the son of, is it Cooper or Ry Cooper, the guy who produced it?
Yeah, it's his son. Yeah,
his son plays percussion.
Who is a proper hippie.
Yeah.
Like everyone else is just giving not to be mean, but everyone else is having like proper kind of down to earth like interview segments. Like, oh yeah, I was like, I was in a band a while back, and then it didn't really go anywhere, and I've just kind of been a shoe shiner since then. And it's nice to be doing music again. And then Rai's son, Ry Cooper's son, is just there like, yeah, man, music is an energy, and it's.
I've learned so much off these all the time.
It's like, why is like the only like white dude in the band have to be like the proper like spiritualist?
But
like,
he talks about that instrument, Ronan, and I've forgotten the name of it now, that makes a whoop whoop noise. And they all call him the whoop whoop man or something like that. They were all laughing at him for using it. But he talks really interestingly about it, like, beyond the sort of like hippie stuff. He talks about how it feels like it's an instrument that helps give this image of the whole album of the tracks of being this sort of like almost imaginary like period and genre that didn't really exist, because we're talking about such a blend of different musical identities in this album that like it didn't really, you would never have like had this music being recorded in the 50s had a compilation of all these different genres.
Yeah.
So in itself, that instrument, which they all are like, what is this thing? It's clearly not traditionally used. Helps give it this sort of like mythical,
unique identity,
nostalgia. Yeah, like it is almost nostalgic when you watch this documentary, because it's pining after something that didn't necessarily even exist, which I thought was really interesting.
That makes a lot of sense, because now I need to see the clip where I actually see what the instrument is. But like, I did think it definitely doesn't sound out of place, but it did surprise me, and it sounds actually quite contemporary. Did they say whether it was a contemporary like instrument?
I'm not sure if it is, but it definitely wasn't used historically in those genres.
Yeah.
At the very least, so it could well be, or it's like an additional thing added in, which is almost great in itself. Like Louis, we were just talking about how like different blends of different instruments create this.
Like something so subtle being added in can then elevate, like you say, the tracks to kind of the notes no longer just that kind of, like we mentioned how like they were. A lot of the songs are just kind of covers and reinventions of very kind of classic Cuban music, but like these elements brought in to kind of elevate it to, like you say, like something like reminiscent of something that never truly existed.
Yeah.
Takes it to another level. Yeah, it is really cool.
And that's probably why the documentary is so good.
It's very worthwhile.
For an Oscar, because it does feel, I don't know, it has like both sort of a genuine feel to it, but also like a strong sense of nostalgia.
It's nice as well through the documentary to kind of have a more kind of human connection with the the musicians and put like a name and a face and a bit of a backstory to everyone involved, and to see them like see how like authentic it was in the moment, like how like genuinely joyful. And I think you can hear that in the like, even if you didn't watch the documentary, you could listen to the album, and you can tell that these are people who are genuinely enjoying like jamming together. And like we mentioned before, this album was recorded over 6 days. So they were just in a famous, I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but they're in like quite a well-known Cuban recording studio, but one that hadn't really, like, all the equipment they had and all the like, you know, bits and pieces, like everything that made up the room they were recording in hadn't been changed since the 50s. So they're in a quite an old school recording space, all kind of crammed together and essentially jamming, like essentially improvising. And so a lot of the songs were these kind of classics that everyone knew, but like they kind of improvised riffs and different melodies on top of those, and obviously brought their own spin to it. And you can just tell that there's, especially through watching the documentary and seeing the little smiles and the little glances they share with each other while they're recording, that there's this definite like kind of appreciation for each other's artistry. And it's quite lovely, like the chemistry of them all like coming together. Like obviously there might have been some tensions that aren't shown or anything like that, but like with 6 days as well, I'm not sure you even have time to
I don't think you're right.
have any tensions or anything like that. They did go touring together as well, to be fair, but like I think it seems like they all got on really well, and they all just had like a respect for each other. And I think something that I kind of took away from it, again, it might be wrong, but it felt like this was kind of a project that was produced without ego, really. There wasn't any artists who saw themselves as better or above, or they were all just jamming together and having fun. And I think that's what produced.
No expectation that it was going to make as much money as
like
it did, or be
it
as successful
was almost
as it
just a fun side project for all of them
even
involved.
I sort of got the feel reading about it, and you know, pre-documentary, that it was almost anthropological in that it was like trying to capture something that had been lost. And the album starts off with that, doesn't it? They're talking about, the club used to be round the corner, and like that's almost how it feels at the start. It's like a project to capture a music, you know, a style of music that hasn't been recorded or hasn't been heard for a long time, and then it just blew up. Is sort of like I guess that's how I imagine I want it to seem, because that's sort of like a really nice story.
That's definitely the narrative in the documentary.
It makes you feel like how many sort of movements and sort of scenes and whatever else have just been kind of lost to time, you know, if that's something I don't know what, like, so Afro-Cuban music just feels like pretty, like, I think most people would know the sound of this album even if they've not listened to this album. It feels pretty well established. I don't know how recent that is, and I, like, not saying that it is attributable to this album specifically, but say that has helped kind of cement it in popular culture. Like, how many other kind of like little genres or scenes or whatever have just not had that attention given to them, and kind of very little record of them exists beyond perhaps their sort of existence within a kind of like musical tree.
Quite an interesting factoid on the realm of preservation of these kind of things is that actually last year, in 2022, this album was selected for preservation in the United States National Recording Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. So
there you go.
It has been recognized for kind of pretty much what you're speculating out there, Rona.
It sort of ties quite nicely into like talking about almost like De La Soul recently, and how that whole catalogue has finally made its way into streaming services. Not that it was in any danger of being lost or anything, but that was it was very frustrating trying to find their music. Like, if you didn't buy it on a CD or vinyl,
it was
I think opportunity to listen to it.
I think they were at risk of like because even for me, like I got really into that whole like native tongues thing, you know, A Tribe Called Quest and Jungle Brothers, and I knew I liked De La Soul in theory. I liked the songs that I'd listened to, but I never listened to them regularly because there was no easy ways to do so. I never listened to them like in terms of like whole albums, you know, like apart from the first one, which I'd sort of sort out. But like, I think they were in that sense at risk of becoming little more than a name that people know they were kind of part of the same scene.
Yeah.
But, like for our generation, perhaps like, you know, increasingly just not really knowing much themselves. So yeah, I've been really excited about that. I've been absolutely rinsing Balloon Mind State. Honestly, can't recommend it enough. Their third album is insane. Honestly, like
The
I think
bonus
it'll be
recommendation for the episode.
right up the street for both of you guys. I don't know about anybody else, but it's just so good.
And that ties quite nicely into guess who I also saw at Boomtown my last time that I was on the podcast.
Did you see De La Soul?
De La Soul.
Oh, no way. What?
Yeah.
Did I know that? Have I just
I
forgotten?
don't think I ever mentioned it. I don't know why I never mentioned it.
That's
Kept it
mad.
low key. Didn't want to get anyone jealous, but now that you've been bashing it, he wants to get you jealous.
How were they live?
Sorry, Ronan. I don't know why I never told you that. They were amazing.
Outrageous.
It was such a good vibe.
That's how I'd imagine it. Like, yeah, just pure like, you know, positive energy and all that. Oh, that's class. And like sadly, because was it Trugoy? Like one of them died really recently.
Yeah.
So also we're buggered in terms of ever getting a chance for that experience.
Makes me wish I'd appreciate it a bit more and not being so hot and hungover, but I think no. It was good. I never got a chance to say my favourite instrument in it. I think I had two. Guy that played like the loud, is it? Or the Lord? It's like the guitar with 12 strings.
Yeah, that's sick.
So sick. And obviously the trumpet as well. With
The trumpet bits were so good.
So good. Yeah, really, really good.
Was the loud was another interesting one where it's like this is another example of where it's like I think it originated in I think it originated in Spain and then was adapted in Cuba to be its own unique thing.
Yeah, I think it definitely started in Spain. Did it? I feel like it had. He talked about two metamorphoses, didn't he? Like two changes that it had.
Did I ever made it up when it was like the Arabic world mentioned, or have I just?
I don't know.
I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure.
I swear. Do you guys know how it's spelled? I'm trying to look it up. Like
L-A-U-D.
I swear this is like L-A-U-D. I swear this is like one of the oldest instruments ever.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like maybe it started in Arabia, then was brought to Spain and changed, and then was brought to Cuba and changed again, and that's how you end up with the Cuban loud.
I'm pretty sure. I'm going to see if I can find something on it.
Was it something about it had a longer neck and then they shortened the neck, or?
I imagine it was something like that. Maybe like shorten the neck and change the strings and maybe adjusted the shape, all that kind of good stuff. But
okay,
yeah,
I think I'm completely misremembering my facts. Sorry.
It's all right. Citation needed. We're not a factual podcast, so it's okay. But there's a really great moment captured in the documentary where the loud and the guitar kind of doing a bit of call and response and then a bit of like duetting together on like and it's just fantastic
When he holds it behind his back and plays it.
Oh yes, yeah,
so cool.
And there's just so many instruments at play, including like people's voices, because I think there's something like 20 musicians on the album, and obviously they don't all play in every single song, but they're all featured at various points, and it just makes it such a pleasure to listen to because you just pick up on so many little like details, and just like there's never any kind of boring, predictable pieces. Like everything is always interesting to listen to.
Yeah,
and there's some lovely solos in there as well.
Yeah. I remember thinking, listened to it again, having watched the documentary, and like would listen out for the bass, the cello bass, and listen out for that wob wob noise that you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, really just sort of enhance it as well. It's great, really good.
I'll hit you with one last little factoid before we move on, which you might like this one. So Rai Kuda, who was the guy who kind of fronted the projects and kind of like trying to bring everybody together, he was actually prosecuted and fined $25,000 by the US authorities for his work on Buena Vista Social Club.
Why? Is this something Cuba related?
Avoid taxes?
Because he was breaking the Trading with the Enemy Act clause in the US embargo on Cuba.
Wow.
Way.
So
I thought it might be
Yeah.
something to do with that. That's so funny.
yeah. I started reading that fact when I was reading up on it, and I was like, "Oh, Raikuda was prosecuted," and I was like, "Oh no, did he turn out to be a
Okay.
bad person?" And then it was like, "Oh, for like just for making the album was against the U.S. trade, like the trade embargo," and I was like, "That's a pretty cool
Mad.
fine to get." To be
Yeah,
fair.
I was gonna say, as long as he's made a lot
that's
of
a
money
badass
from it.
one. Yeah,
Just bankrupted by it is not as cool. But if it's just like a little like, oh well, then that is
Yeah,
cool. As
yeah.
fines go, breaking a trade embargo with Cuba to produce a fantastic album. It's a badge of honor.
Yeah, adds an irony then for it to be included in the United States of Library
Oh, yeah.
of Aesthetically
yeah,
Significant
library preservation.
Material.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is interesting that. Yeah, yeah. We've already kind of covered favorite songs, so unless you want to quickly re-list off your particular favorites.
I mean, I loved Chan Chan. I think everyone is in agreement with that one.
Yeah,
Candela as well.
yeah.
And I like the
Candela's stuck in my head for the last like 3 weeks now.
Nice.
Like
Good.
I just find myself humming along to it and singing along to it, and it's getting to the point. I've listened to the album quite a lot now, and it is getting to the point where I'm like almost able to sing along to some of it
Yeah.
without fully
I
knowing
can
what
do
I'm
the
saying.
Candela bit. Candela, Candela, Candela. There's something fuego, which means fire.
Yeah.
So good. But then also, I like the third track, El Cuarto de Tula. Well, that was good. But it's a very good album. Some bangers. Obviously, otherwise,
a good
can
album.
you imagine if I turned up and was like, I think it's a bit shit.
Actually,
Yeah.
I've actually ended up getting it on vinyl as well.
Have you? I was thinking of getting it on vinyl because it's got a cool book
It's
as well.
pretty lovely. Yeah, I got the special edition that is like a full
It's
little book.
Louis, it's a good book for the coffee table. It's a good.
It is a,
book for the
it is a
coffee
good
table.
coffee table book. Yeah, it is a nice collection. Comes with CDs as well. I can't even play any CDs.
It's like 25 quid as well, isn't it? It's
good
actually
to
not
have.
bad.
Yeah, it's a bargain.
Absolutely
That's just like normal vinyl.
Well
price.
worth
Yeah.
adding to the collect. Mate, it's such value for money considering a normal vinyl is about 25. Like it's such a lovely
I might have
book.
to get it.
Yeah, I'm gonna get it as
Yeah.
well. A book,
It's
a
not-
vinyl, and CDs. What?
I was thinking of
cool.
saying this before, but I thought it might almost sound insulting to it. But it is also almost like the perfect like dinner party album.
You would be the classiest, coolest motherfucker if you put this on vinyl in the background. You're just like, yes, let me take your seats, and then you just like needle drop.
Yeah.
And it goes into Chan Chan. Like,
yeah.
yes,
So
that is a vibe.
so good.
I want that dinner party to happen.
Should we just like hold a dinner party, the three of us, and
Yeah.
engineer it? So
Serve
we
up
just
fish
play
and
the
chips and
album?
pies.
Yeah, we can all just like stand there like smiling intensely, like, come on guys, how amazing is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, I might get it as well.
All right. Well, thank you very much for picking this one, Alex, because genuinely really enjoyed listening to it, and yeah, it's nice pick, nice to add to the collection of albums.
It's been a pleasure. It meant I got to watch the documentary. It meant I had to force myself to watch the documentary, and of course got to listen through the album a couple of times as well, which was is always a joy. So thank you for having me on, guys.
That's all good.
Have you put together a quiz, or I realise I didn't remind you?
Quickly remind me what I'm supposed to have done, and then maybe I can just wing it.
Yeah, you can totally wing it.
What is the
You very much
I don't
can
mind
wing
if
it.
you want to quickly Google some. Most of the time, people put together a quiz over their lunch break, including me.
Okay.
So you can probably wing it.
Right.
Just like maybe like 3 to 5 questions based on things from the album name or
Slash
band
Cuba,
name.
Okay.
Or like
Slash Cuba. So like tangentially related. So rather than questions about the band,
Okay.
questions about social clubs or Buena Vista.
Okay.
Or
This is
Vista
good. I reckon I can do
credit
this.
cards,
I got
you know?
this. I got this.
You can run with anything.
My first one. This is for you, Ronan. What is the name?
I mean, it's for both of us.
Sorry.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on as well.
Also, I'll quickly do this thing because we do this thing live. For this bit.
That's a good point.
It's time for the quiz. Do 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 do. There we go.
Yes.
Okay. First off, Ronan, what is the name of the social club that Margaret Thatcher's painting features in Brixton?
I feel like Louis, you might know of this as well. I
No.
don't know that. No, okay. Ephra Social Club.
Ephra, nice, good one.
It's a weird place. So weird.
Okay, my next question. What does Buena Vista mean in English?
Oh.
I should. This should be like
Oh, I know.
more apparent than it is.
I think I know.
I feel like we know what Buena means. Buena.
Can I buzz in? Shall I buzz in for
Go
it?
on, yeah.
Buzz. Good view.
Yeah, well done, Ronan.
Yeah.
Very good.
It does mean good view. Who are the two people that feature heavily in murals and on paintings in Cuba? Louis, this is for you because it's you want documentary.
Che Guevara, presumably.
Yeah,
And
Castro.
Castro. Well done. Good job.
Well,
Guys.
it's interesting because I was thinking it's probably Castro, right? But then I was like, is he as like iconic as Che Guevara? I mean, as an individual, he is, but is his like
I don't
portrait?
think the population really had much of a choice over,
No, that's true.
over whether he was iconic or not.
Yeah, but murals implies like painted by the people almost, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Dictators tend to put up
right.
statues. I don't know.
I mean, he did. Like, is the whole thing about introducing 100% literacy rates? Is that a myth, or is it like that? That's the classic
I think it
one.
does.
Like, despite all the atrocities, yeah.
I think it still does score regularly higher in like health indexes and education indexes compared to neighbouring countries.
It's actually not like it's one of the better examples of a communist country, but you know, the whole being like authoritarian and that does let it down a bit.
Water.
Okay.
I think there's bottled water in Cuba at the moment. But when my brother went to Cuba, he had to take. They were like, "Where are you coming from?" And he was like, "I'm from the USA." And he was like, "Can you bring powdered milk with you?"
No.
Well, there you go. But it's not entirely their fault. Like that's a result of like embargoes and stuff like that.
Yeah, true. Actually,
Thank you all very much for listening. Thank you very much for joining us, Alex, and thanks for a great album recommendation. Can thoroughly recommend you all go away, put this one on. Maybe save it for when it gets a little bit warmer. Maybe miss out. It's going to snow in the next week or so. So maybe wait until it's a little bit warmer and then put on some nice Cuban vibes.
Get on Buena Vista Social Club with a mojito.
You can find us on all your favorite podcast sites, so Spotify, iTunes, you know, the good ones, the regular ones, some of the obscure ones. Try to update us on SoundCloud as well. We've got a YouTube channel. You can also email us if you have any hot takes on any of our hot takes. You can contact us at or something else entirely at gmail.com, or you can find us on Instagram where we update when there's a new episode out, that kind of thing. I'll probably put on there as well things like, oh, this week's episode is a week late, which this one is. So you can follow us there for updates on that kind of thing if you ever like, oh, what's going on? But yeah, I think that's everything. So thank you all once again. Lovely.
Thank you, Louis. Thank you, Ronan. That's great.
Hey, escalator, what you doing later? I wanted you to get close to me. I think it's quite amazing. You keep on adding up, but your brother's going down like he's supposed to be. Hey, escalator, look at all those waiters darting around the sky like an apostrophe. I think it's quite amazing that you might break the look, but also you're a wonder in your own way.
Communists have nothing to offer but fat cheeks and eyeglasses and lying policemen. And the capitalists proffer napalm and money in green suitcases to the naked. And the communists create heavy industry, but the heart is also heavy.